Robert Keegan. I'm the Trade Solutions Manager at EORI. Today we're joined by Eve Rolls, our Technical Delivery Manager. She's written a paper on duty, customs duty. I'm going to talk all about it, the different types, how you can pay it, and how it applies. Eve, what is customs duty?
So customs duty is your most standard, when people refer to duty, basically that's normally what they're referring to. You can get different types of duty, but customs duty is generally what people are referring to when they've got to pay duty at import. So it's charged on imported goods, often as a percentage of the value that you're declaring, but not always.
Not always. Tell us more.
It could be charged based on the net weight or percentage of sugar in a product, maybe. There are lots of different sort of methods of charging duty, depending on the commodity code that you've got.
So on the commodity code, does that determine the duty? Is that the sole factor in there?
No, not the sole factor. Often in this industry, really, people will refer to the three pillars. So you've got classification, origin, and valuation. All three of those sort of intertwine together to get to make sure that you're getting an accurate sort of representation. And the valuation, if it's a percentage rate for your duty, obviously it is a percentage of the value. The origin, some countries may have different rates applicable to them. So if you import the goods from, say, somewhere in Europe, they might have a 3% most favoured nation rate, but they might also be able to benefit from a preferential rate, which might reduce it right down to zero. And then in terms of the actual classification, every code has a different duty rate against it. So it's important to factor in all three, as well as potential for any preferential agreements that might or might not be in place.
Okay. So we had a customer call up the other day because there was freight charges on the invoice. And we asked them for the split, what was the UK-based freight and what was their EU-based freight. And they said it was £1 EU-based freight and £500 UK-based freight. What were they trying to do?
So they were trying to sort of, I won't fiddle with the value maybe, and reduce the amount of duty that they have to pay. So duty becomes due on anything up to the point of introduction to the territory. So whether you're in the UK or whether you're not, the point of introduction to the territory is where duty is due up until. So any additions to that point, freight inclusive, duty is due on that value. So if your freight is £100, that gets added onto your goods value to form part of your customs value. In terms of the onward journey, so after the frontier, VAT is due on that figure. So if they've got, was it £500 that you said? £500, that amount is then VATable.
So they were trying to pull a fast one?
In short terms, yeah.
Okay. So what could happen if they did pull a fast one and HMRC found out at a later date?
So duty can be charged retrospectively. And that does happen quite frequently. HMRC will just turn up for audit and pick out whatever they want to audit, really. They are well within their rights to do that. And if it is established later down the line, let's say in a year's time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time even, that those values were incorrect, or maybe you determined the origin incorrectly, or even that you classified the goods under a code that had a 2% duty rate when they should have been classified as a code with an 8% duty rate, all of that can be charged in retrospect.
Plus interest.
Yes, plus the fine.
Expensive. So you've told us about customs duty. I want to talk about three others. We've got countervailing, anti-dumping, safeguarding, and excise duty. You're wincing because why are you wincing? Let's start with the easy one. Let's start with excise.
So excise, generally, just think of anything that you might enjoy doing that the government don't want you to do. So alcohol products, so beers, wines, spirits, tobacco, vaping duty soon to be implemented as well. You've also got hydrocarbons and oils, so fuels and things like that. That's anything, any of the products where excise would be due, and those rates are often quite high dependent on the product. So that take alcohol, for example, that's charged on percentage of alcohol in the product.
Does it matter where the goods are coming from? Can I get a lower rate for French wine than I would say Italian wine, or is it all the same?
Unfortunately not. Excise is excise. So no preferential agreement will bypass that, really, unfortunately.
Fair enough. Let's talk about the other big three. Let's go with anti-dumping.
So that's to try and, as it says on the tin, really, to try and stop an influx of cheaper made products, let's say. So there are a lot of nations, let's take China as the popular example. Yeah. They can produce near enough anything at a cheaper rate than a UK company could. So they might make a pair of shoes for £1 a pair of shoes, where in the UK that would cost £10 to make. Obviously all of that then ends up in the goods value somewhere, and duty is due on that value. So if the value is lower because the production costs have been lower, they can just flood the UK market, and dump on the market, exactly as it says.
It's protection against that.
Absolutely. Right. All duty is some form of protection.
That's true. Back onto China, because like you said, they're quite liable to a lot of different types of duties.
Yeah.
Let's talk about countervailing duty, because it's the one that's not as common as the others.
Yeah, so this is when a foreign government would put some sort of subsidy in place for somebody to make that product. So they might say that there is a subsidy to make solar panels, let's say, and it all of a sudden becomes cheaper for them to make a solar panel because it's subsidised. The costs of the supply chain are a lot lower than they would have been without it. So then at import, they can then charge, to the buyer, they can then charge a much lower price.
Because of the subsidies.
So the countervailing duty goes on again to try and level the playing field with the domestic market.
Fair enough. And then the last one that's applied at import to countries is safeguarding duty.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Again, often seen on steel products. The UK have got quite a rich steel industry, and we want to protect that. So again, it's down to protecting the domestic market. Safeguarding duties do tend to be quite high. 25%, yeah.
I think it's going up to 50% in the steel review.
I think it is, and I think it's dependent on how much
quotas.
So the quotas.
It's quite complex.
So there's a lot to it. The quotas can sometimes take away the safeguarding duty, but on a first come first served basis. So there's a lot to it, but generally those three are to protect domestic markets.
Can you have more than one type of duty?